Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. Photographing highly reflective complex shapes like this French horn can be a bit of a challenge, especially if you want to bring out and make a point of the reflections and curves in the surfaces. This image uses a few tricks and techniques that can be applied to all sorts of shiny things. And in this video I'll show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so this is my subject, this French horn. And on this table I've just placed some black cloth which will help control some of the reflections. So in order to photograph this then, what I want to do is actually sort of lean it over a bit, something like that. Now normally it wouldn't be stable like this, so what I'm going to do is just put a clamp on this side just to hold it at the right sort of angle. There we are. Now later on I'll show you exactly how I'm going to get rid of this clamp, otherwise it would appear in the picture. Okay, so for the actual subject, that's about it for the time being. So what I want to do now is just place a tripod at the front here and then I'll set up the camera. Okay, so I'll just put this tripod at the front here. Now this is relatively close to the subject, and that's because I'll be using a wide-angle lens on the camera. Now I'm using that on purpose so that it will emphasize all the curves and it will give me the opportunity to get in close and really exaggerate the shapes that are in this. So on this medium format camera I have a 28mm lens, so you can get an equivalent field of view on a full frame format camera from something like a 16mm lens, so pretty wide. Okay, so what I'll do is pop this on the top of the tripod here. And with that, I can open up the waist level finder and turn the camera on. There we are. So that's all on now, and that's been recognized by the software which I've tethered the camera into. And this is Capture One software, and it repeats all the settings that I have on the camera in the software here. So at the moment it's in full manual mode. I've got a shutter speed of 1/15 of a second, ISO 100, and the aperture set to f8. Now that'll all probably change, but it's a reasonable starting point just to take a test exposure just with the house lights. So you can see in this exposure that I haven't even bothered to focus the camera yet, and also the exposure itself is about 2 or 3 stops under. What I can do is just focus the camera from the software here. I'll just click on the autofocus button and I'll just add a couple of stops of sensitivity to the ISO. There we are. We'll grab that again. Okay, so now you can see in here that we've got the beginnings of our photograph. There are lots of highlights in here which are all the house lights themselves, and there's lots of reflections. If you look hard enough you can probably see that there's a reflection of the camera somewhere in this too. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to set some proper lighting. So what I want you to do is change these settings so that it's more appropriate for flash. So I can put the shutter speed up to the flash sync speed for this camera, and the whole idea of this is to try and cut out all of this light which we've just used to take this picture. I'll put the ISO back down to 100, and as for the aperture, well, I think I'd like a little more depth of field in this, so I'm going to go for something like f16. There we are. So at these settings I'll grab an image now and hopefully it'll cut out all of the available light. And there, now see that it has cut out all of the available light, but this is also showing one of the problems with taking pictures of very shiny objects. You can see all the highlights in here, which are all the house lights that we have in the room at the moment. And it's very difficult to get rid of those. So when we come to actually take the proper pictures, we'll probably need to take the house lights out. So now it's time to set the flash. So here we are, I've just got a flash head here, just with a normal reflector on it, and I'm just going to position this over the top of the subject. There we are. And just at an arbitrary energy level, I'll grab an image and we'll just see what sort of exposure we get. Okay, so you can see in this image that we're getting something, but it's not really showing very much of the shape of this instrument. I'm getting a few reflections here, but actually they're not really what I want. So what I want to do is find a way that I can make some reflections in here to show the shape. So what I'm going to do is use this old music book, and I'm just going to place this underneath the subject, just like this. There we are. Now that's going to do two things. First of all, it's going to reflect in the underside of this, so it should show the shape a bit better. And secondly, being mostly white, it's going to reflect some of the light back onto the underside here. Okay, so with that in place, let's grab that image again and see what it looks like now. Okay, so that's coming along quite nicely. It has shown me the shape, and it has illuminated all this area. So this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. But really, it's still a little stark. So what I need to do is swap out this reflector for a softbox. There we are. So that's a 3-foot octabox, and you'd think that it's going to give you a reasonable result. Well, let's just grab an image and see what it looks like. Okay, well, it's certainly better than the result we had before. This is what we had before. This is what we've got with the softbox, but it's still not showing very much of the shape, and you can quite easily see the edges of the softbox in the reflection. But it's a step in the right direction. So what we actually need to do is change this softbox for something a lot more controllable and quite a bit bigger. Okay, so this is quite a lot bigger than the softbox. This is a 6-foot by 6-foot scrim. Basically, it's a diffusion material which is stretched over a frame. And the idea of this is that I'll be able to control exactly the hotspot that I get from the light. Now, I've put the reflector back on the light at the moment, and the distance between the light and the surface of this material will determine how big a hotspot I get, and it will graduate out from that, which should end up with a graduation in the reflection of the French horn. Okay, so we'll grab an image and just see what we get. And there, immediately you can see the difference between the softbox and the large scrim. This is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. So it's made a huge difference to the way the thing looks. There's a few bits of fine tuning to do. You can still see there's some bits at the back here because I still have no backing behind the set. So I need to sort that out. And the actual position of this light is critical. So in order to set that, I'll need to turn the house lights out and turn the modelling light on. So we'll just do those two things one at a time. So the first thing would be just to address the background. There we are. So for the background, I've just added a piece of black cloth here to the edge of the scrim frame. I'm just going to turn the modelling light on, and I'll turn the house lights out and go into live view, and I'll show you just what happens to this light when we move it. Okay, so as I swing this round, you can see the difference that it's making to the actual subject there. And this isn't something that you can do with a softbox. You can only do this with this sort of lighting. So if we go for something like that, there we are. That's completely different to the type of reflection that I was getting in the previous image. So that's what we had before, and that's what I've got now. And the addition of the black cloth has got rid of all of the bits in the background. So we're starting to get there, I think. A few bits of fine tuning. I think I'm going to just adjust the reflector on the light there, just to give me a tighter beam. There we are. I might just raise that up ever so slightly. Just move it to about there. Okay, we'll just grab that again. Yes, that's more like the sort of thing I want. So I'm getting a graduation here, and I've got a nice reflection going on around here too. Okay, so as far as the lighting is concerned, that's about set. You can still see that there's some highlights in here from the house lights. So for the proper picture, I'm going to have to turn the house lights out. Okay, so let's just grab that. And there, you can see that they've all gone now. So this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. So the next thing to address would be this clamp at this side. So we need to get rid of that. And the easiest way to do that is just to add another clamp in a different position so that I can remove this one, keeping everything else exactly where it is. So there you are, you can see that I've set another clamp at that side. So now I should be able to remove the clamp at this side. There we are. So the whole thing is now supported by the right hand side clamp. And with that, we'll just grab it again. Yes, that's worked quite well. So this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. One of the things I can do now as well is just illuminate this side of the French horn. To do that, I'm just going to use this piece of white card. So I'm just going to place this just in here, like this. Now obviously it will appear in the picture, but because I've already got a blank slate in effect, I can always take it out in post-production. Okay, so let's just grab that. And yes, that's sort of worked. It's in a little bit of the wrong position. So I'm just going to adjust it and we'll take another picture. There we are. Let's try it like that. Yes, that's the sort of thing I want. So it's shown this curve all the way around this side. Okay, so now with those three images captured, what I can do is go into Photoshop and do the post-production. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up three of the images that I captured earlier. So I've got this one with the clamp on the left hand side, then I've got this one with the clamp above it, and then I've got this one with the card reflector in place. So the first job is just to make a composite of these three images. So to do that, I'm just going to go to File, come down to Scripts, and load files into Stack. And I'll just ask it to add the open files and attempt to automatically align. Okay, so now I've got a new file at the top here, so I can dispense with these three camera originals. Each one of those is now on a separate layer within this file. So I can just flick through these by turning the visibility on and off. So I've got this with the clamp on the left, this with the clamp overhead, and this is the one with the white card reflector in place. Okay, so just starting with these two, what I'm going to do is just place a mask on this top one here so that I can then just mask out where that clamp is. So I'll just select the top layer here, add a mask. Now wherever I paint on this mask in black, it will show through the underlying images. So I'll just make sure that black's selected as the foreground colour, grab a paintbrush, I'll just make that a bit more of a sensible size. There we are, and I'll just paint that out. There we are. And now just to bring that reflection back in, I can add a mask to the underlying layer. So I'll just select that one, add a mask, and now I can just paint that back on again. Same thing again. Here we go. There we are. And that just brightens that whole area up. Okay, so with those little bits now completed, the next thing to do would be, I think, just go and have a look at a crop. Now I'm going to be using this for video, so I'm using a specific ratio of 16:9, and I'm just going to tighten the whole thing up a little, something like that. So finally, I'll just try and do a little bit of grading. So I want to grade all of these the same, so I'll just make sure the top layer is selected and just add an adjustment layer, and I'm just going to add a levels adjustment to start with, and I'm just going to set my black level. So I'm going to pick an area which is almost black but not quite, and just take that down a bit. There we are. That's more like the sort of thing I want. Just makes it that little bit more punchy. Okay, so there we have it. By using a large scrim above the subject, I've been able to graduate the reflections in the surface of the French horn here, and that in turn has helped to reveal the shape of the subject, together with the carefully placed reflections of the sheet music. And I think overall, that's worked rather well. Okay, well I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.